what sometimes does not happen is the federal government acts on information given to us here. Most of the time it is people with a vested interest, lobbyists who get paid to come in and talk to us about things that they feel are important. Well, you should be your own lobbyist. You should tell us what is important. Because if you don't, then we only hear one side. Transit agencies generally are used by the working class, of which I am part of. I used the bus to go to work when I was working for Ford Motor many moons ago. And I would have continued to use it, except it took me longer to get to the bus stop than it did by driving directly to my place of employment. And so I used to call my area the bastard area of LA County, and they didn't like that. I said, well, tell me then how it's different. And I started asking questions, and so then some of the transit agencies began to get on board, and we had briefings, and finally they instituted more routes that would pick up the working class and take students to work and people to their appointments. But if you don't speak, they will not listen. So that's partly why I'm very interested in making sure that people understand that it is all of our responsibility to make sure that we inform, educate, and otherwise make aware the policymakers on the issues that are inherently responsible in your area for providing that service. And if you don't, then you're not really doing your job. We're trying to do ours, but you need to help us do ours also. The transit agencies may continue to purchase more rail cars than buses, but if we don't have the funds to use them, then we are not really doing a service to our communities, and that means for the operations itself. I have signed a letter that was geared to Mr. Overstar with 70 other of my colleagues, urging Chairman Overstar, Ranking Member Micah, to include transit operation funding in the reauthorization bill. We really must ensure that states and local governments do not become dependent on federal operations funding. Well, transit, any kind of transit, whether it's rail, highway, all of it has to be subsidized. Coming from a small city like Norwalk, we were subsidized, and we know that, we expect that. But to what extent and to what end, and that's something that you, the general public, or those people who are utilizing the system have to let us know that this is a necessity. It takes cars off the road because the pollution, safety issue, all those things go into the decision making. So you need to be able to be aware that you need to keep us aware so that we can pass it right along. I did meet this morning with new Director of Metropolitan Transit Authority of Los Angeles, Mr. Leahy, because I have great expectations of him, of being able to change the system in Southern California that delivers a transit bus system to our riders. I've sat at meetings in Los Angeles with the Transit Riders Bill of Rights. I've heard the people speak to the issue. But you also need to know that you need to talk to your local elected officials to let them know whether or not those services are going to be adequate from your vantage point. Because if they're doing it from the city's vantage point, sometimes that may be a little bit different. And so I've asked them to not only contact the councils of government in Southern California in my area, but also to begin to dialogue with those people who are part of the ridership, because their opinions count. As far as we're concerned, they're the ones who are going to make or break the system. If they don't use it, then there is no income to the bus system itself. I've also been moving forward in expansion of some of the lines in California, the metro line, the metro lines, because we need to be able to increase the ability of mass transit. And I keep telling my Los Angeles folks that I need mass transit in my area. I don't need a bullet train. And to a certain degree, there are other things that I feel are also as important, and that comes down to bus versus rail, mass transit. Well, you all know, I'm sure you've seen here in Washington the system. I've been in many of them. including some in Europe. And we're nowhere near the delivery system that other countries have. Why not? We're the biggest country, we're the most affluent, the most advanced in technology, and yet where are we in being able to provide transit, any kind of transit for our folks? And so it's still a long ways to go in transportation, and I'm sure that I'm going to be hearing from a lot of folks in regard to, well, this is important to me, this particular issue. And I'm more than willing to speak to people and take information and then disseminate it and utilize it as much as I can to be able to get the message across. I don't know if you want a question and answer period. I have a few minutes. I'd be happy to speak to anybody. I want to introduce Joe Sheehy, who's my legislative director. He's my transportation person. Joe, they want to see who you are. And my young intern on communications. But I would be happy to take any questions. There is a crisis. I was briefly going through your handout, and there's a lot of information here. Be sure it gets to the hands of the people of the that sit on transportation. Show them what it is that you're talking about. Guys, we get reading material. If I really were to read everything that comes to my office on a daily basis, I'd have no time to do anything else but read. So you've got to condense it, you've got to talk to us, you've got to brief us quickly to the point, and be sure that we know who you are. So if I want to call you back for further information, or for follow-up or reference to somebody else that might be able to use that information, you've got to do that. So with that,
if there's any questions